Welcome to Sketchy Ideas, the live point counterpoint video podcast where we illustrate and debate concepts surrounding leadership, business, and personal achievement in a way that may make you think twice before you implement that new idea you just learned about on the internet. Hi, I'm Brian Omek, the Sketchy Ideas producer.
And I'm Michael Rampolla, one of your co hosts. And today we're going to be exploring the sales process. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Michael, didn't we just do that? We did. We're going to do it a little bit differently today because, as you know, the same concept explained different ways sometimes makes different sense to different people. You might find some new insights today you didn't learn last time, but we're all talking about the same thing. Now, you're going to wonder right away, where is Brad? I've been wondering the same thing all day. Actually, we know where Brad is. Brad is attending a digital conference that is actually all about sales and the process we're going to talk about today. So Brad is upskilling. I know he's going to bring back some awesome ideas for us next week. And in the meantime, I want to thank Brian, our producer, for stepping up bravely and valiantly into the role of co-host today. So let's get into sales process. So last week, Brad talked about sales process in a couple different ways. He talked about it as a linear process. You talked about it as a cyclical process. I'm going to take the more linear approach today. I'm going to break it down, same ideas, slightly different terms. When we talk about sales at Spirity, these are the four stages we always talk about. And we're trying to keep it simple on purpose. And we're looking at it from the perspective both of the salesperson and the buyer or the prospect. And we're going to define those terms here in a second. So the four stages of the sales process, when we're keeping it simple, are initiation, qualification, negotiation, determination. Your English teacher would give us bonus points for parallel structure. We'll do that again. Initiation, qualification, negotiation, and determination. What is happening in each of these stages? Defined by the title. Initiation. Now, each of these has two kind of subsets. Because this is a sales process, we want it to be repeatable. Let me define process. Deming says, if you can't define what you're doing as a process, you don't know what you're doing. And I know that that is absolutely true when it comes to sales. Brian, producer, if you cite that later, you can't cite me. You got to cite the source. Deming got it right. Thanks, bud. So initiation, this is the sales process defined. Let's do the terms and then we'll define them. Two parts of initiation. From initiation, we want to be paying attention to contacts. Oh, already we're spelling wrong. There we go. Contacts and leads. And there is a difference. A contact, anybody whose contact information you have. A lead, someone who could actually be doing business with you. Somebody who actually be doing business with you is a lead, a worthwhile lead. Lead generation is another word for initiation. Qualification, two parts of qualification. And here we're looking at touches and meetings. As you can see, ideally, one leads to the other. Touches all of the different ways you could reach out to get to the meeting. Email, phone call, text message, LinkedIn connection, meeting somebody face to face, bumping into them at a networking event. All of those are touches. And they're all touches. And this is one of those cycles that you get in until you get to a meeting. By the way, scheduling a meeting is good. Holding a meeting is better. Anybody can take a reservation. It's holding the reservation that really matters. Same thing goes for a meeting. Anybody can schedule a meeting. It's getting that booked meeting to happen when sales really matters. All right, so that takes us to number 3, negotiation. For negotiation, we want to pay attention to two things here: prospects and proposals. Prospects is somebody who you've had a meeting with, and we are now in the negotiation phase with that person. They become a prospect when things get real. And they get a proposal when things get really real. And then when we get to the final stage, we're looking at determination. We're going to differentiate between a sale and revenue. Talking with another coach about how his sales are going, he said, well, I've got this and this in revenue, and I've got this much in sales that I expect to convert next week. Because sales doesn't convert to revenue right away. Revenue is when it's in the bank. Sales is when it's on paper. Important differentiator, especially because you can't pay anybody on signed contracts. You can pay them with cash, though. All right, let's go back to this. So what is in each of these stages, you want to be identifying, let me go back to process. getting ahead of myself, Brian, already. All right. Why are we doing a
Wow,
process?
Brad
Why are we?
leaves and you're just
I know. I just
going crazy.
apparently I need him. He's my governor. He slows me down a little bit. All right. The idea behind now that seems like a lot of layers and things. Really, it's not. It's four, but it's eight. So look at the eight. In each of these, let me just kind of guess where we're at. So initiation, qualification, negotiation, determination. We're looking at the subsets. I need to know where a potential revenue is in my sales process. Each of these defines a set of things. Anybody in any opportunity will do that. Any opportunity in any of these steps, I should be able to do the exact same kinds of things for all the opportunities in a given sub part of my process. So meetings, anything that is in the meetings phase, I know how to show up to a meeting, and my meeting process, sub process, if you will, for any meeting opportunities is going to be the same. Any group of leads that I am working through this touches process, I can throw all of that group into the same process to get a meeting scheduled. And I don't have to deal with any of the opportunities in here in any different way except my goal is to get to the next step. Same thing here. All the prospects are, I'm doing all the same kinds of things with anybody that's in the prospect stage. I'm doing all the same kinds of things in the proposal stage. So for you, if you use different terms, that's fine. But I want you as a salesperson, business owner, sales leader to know is that it's important to be accurate and objective about where an opportunity stands. Because you know where your opportunities stand, you'll get a much better view of your pipeline, right? Another word for this is the pipeline, a much better view of your pipeline and know where you should be putting your time and your attention and your energy. This is often talked about as Brad said, and again, this is topic of where he is right now in training, the sales funnel. I could imply a funnel right here, and this would help bring things down to that revenue target. And at each stage, some people are going to go through in a good way. They're going to get through the funnel. They're going to go through the filter to the next stage. Some things are going to fall out and maybe even get stuck. That's going to happen, and that's okay. You need to know that there's a filter between each of these stages that determines when you are over the line and into the next one. I'm going to go over what the filters are next, Brian. How, am I making sense?
Yeah, so basically you can't go to the next one unless you go through the first one.
Correct. And I like the way you put that. Some people say, well, I got a meeting. Well, I didn't prospect for it. I didn't, get a lead. I just got a meeting. Meetings don't just happen, right? Somehow you got to that meeting. And whether these were light versions of themselves, one way or another, you had to go through all of that to get to the meeting.
Sometimes
Proposals
you're going
rarely
through
fall
the
in your
whole
lap.
funnel without even knowing that you're going through parts of the funnel.
You nailed it. Exactly right. I have definitely had things walk into my lap and I'm basically already a proposal, but I didn't know that all that other stuff was happening in the background. Great referrals sometimes look like magic, but before you knew it, all this other stuff happened before the opportunity got to you. So, absolutely, Brian, great insight. So, for each of these, let's focus on a couple important things here. Every contact is not a lead, right? Not everybody I talk to is going to be, you can say qualified lead or a worthwhile lead, but we do, when we talk about, we do classify the leads. So one of the important things in the initiation stage is classification. Let me add that in here. You need to classify your leads. And we use a simple thing, which is A, B, and C, which you can use whatever you want, but we just use A, B, and C. And we know what the terms mean. A means target buyer, person with money who has problem, who will pay to make the pain go away. For us as Spirity, it's business owners and HR leaders. Business owners and HR, if you fall into the category of a business owner or an HR leader and you're talking to me, you are an A lead, A class lead, because I know that that is the group that we are most likely to be able to do business with. A B is somebody who is not quite there. I'll nickname this a bridge maybe. It's a good opportunity. It's a partnership, but it's not actually the person who's going to be making the purchase. Sometimes they might be an influencer that can get me an introduction, but because they're an influencer introducer, not the actual buyer, like I don't want to classify them as an A. I'm not going to run them down as hard. I'm going to deal with them differently in the touches stage than I would somebody who's A class. And C is just basically a contact. So now they're really a lead, but if they're a contact, I always keep track of all of these anyway. We keep all of the contacts in our CRM, but the C's, for lack of a better term, I don't do anything with. I just have them. I know that they're there. I do send them a LinkedIn request because you never know who knows who and what might come back. but you don't want to spend a lot of time running down contacts that you think are leads. So identify what makes a good qualified lead. And the best way to do that, I'll jump ahead in the story, is to figure out what kind of business you're closing. If you look at the patterns in the business you have closed, successfully closed, real revenue realized, look for what's common among the people that are doing business with you and giving you their hard earned for your magic. In there, you will be able to identify the theme that identifies what's a true A for you. And that'll help you do a better job of classification. You already hear me starting to use terms like measure and analyze and data. And that is a key part of the process. Anything that is a process, because it's a process, it's repeatable. I can do this over and over and over. If it's repeatable, it's measurable. And what gets measured gets improved. Or said another way, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. I'm going to do a raise your hand. Raise your hand if you want to get better at sales. Okay, good. Raise your hand if you're measuring your current sales data. Well, I put my hand up, but this is important. You want to get better, you got to define what better looks like. You want more revenue, and I know you do. Of course you do, right? You have an obligation to revenue because you're a business owner. You need to be making money to be in business. If you're a salesperson, you have an obligation to revenue because you have an awesome product that does a particularly a great thing for a particular person. You are obligated to get that thing to that person. You're obligated to sell and achieve revenue, which enables you to sell more and get more of that great thing out to the people who need it and value it. But if you don't know what's working, how are you going to do more of it? So track your results. And this, I'm encouraging you, are the 8 things I would pay attention to. At the very least, keep a tally, if nothing else. All right, leads, A's. If I'm doing it right, my A's, then now I'm into touches. And touches is all the different ways you're going to follow up. And you should do lots of different follow up techniques and approaches because you don't know what's going to work and different people respond in different ways. So definitely have different varieties of things here. I don't like the word follow up. I don't know why. It just feels like so bland to me. But this feels like I'm making some intention here and have different varieties of this. All of this, again, is to get to the meeting. When you get to the meeting is when qualification happens. Okay, the goal of the qualification stage is to get this meeting so I can qualify my opportunity. Let me talk about what's happening here. We call this the match. This is what qualification looks like. Actually, let me save the match and write big so everybody can read it. The question of qualification is really 3 questions. And for each of these questions, my goal, as you can imagine in sales, is to get a yes. Question number 1 is their need. Do I, as a salesperson, understand their need? Number 2, our offer. Do they, as the opportunity or the prospect, or not the not yet prospect, understand what we offer? And question number 3 is there a match? Now, let me be very refined in the way I ask these questions. Here's the real question I'm asking. Their need. Does the prospect, we'll call them a prospect, I guess they're a lead still. Let me take that back. Does the lead believe that I understand what they need? Because I can understand what they need and I can be very confident, I can even be accurate. But do they believe that I understand what they need? That's the real question you're asking. So when you're doing this, it's important to spend as much time as you possibly can in number 1. I'm even going to put 80-20 on this. And I'm going to say if you can in a meeting, spend as much time as possible. Target 80% of the time spent understanding the need of the lead. Because then when you get the chance to talk about what you offer, it will be so easy for you to tailor and target that offer to their need and how it's going to help them. So the more questions you can ask and the more you can stay in listen mode, and I say the 2 key skills of a good salesperson is being able to, well, I guess it's 3. Ask questions that enable you to listen and then be quiet long enough to hear the answers. Ask questions to get something worth listening to and then be quiet long enough to hear their answer and let them keep going. So that's their need. Do they believe that I understand what they need? Number 2, here is our offer, targeted and tailored to exactly what they just described to me. Wow, it sounds like you know me so well. Well, yeah, it's because I spent all this time learning you and understanding you. Now I can tell you how what we offer meets your need. Now, do you, lead, believe that our offer meets your need? Actually, that's question number 3. Question number 2 is, do you understand what we offer? So, do you believe that I understand what you need? Do you understand what we offer? I'm asking them to kind of like give it back to me. It sounds like it'll do this and this and this. Great. Question number 3, is there a match? Now, if I did my job well, the answer is going to be yes. The answer is going to be yes. Sometimes the answer is going to be no. In which case, what I offer shouldn't be my services. It should be, as I've listened for most of my time, an offer to direct them to a different resource so they can get what they need. If I'm doing truly my job as a servant salesperson or a consultative salesperson, a solution focused salesperson, my offer to them should be meeting their need, even if it's not what I do. And then if there's a match, if they say, yeah, that's great. And if it's not me, then I give them the information and direct them to the source. If it is a match, great. Guess what? Now we have a prospect. And now we're talking about terms. So when we're in negotiation, what we're really negotiating here is terms or value. We'll talk about value for a second. Value is an exchange of one thing for another. And the value, please, I know you've heard features and benefits, right? But I'm just going to tell you, people don't really buy in features and benefits. They buy on outcomes. Nobody really cares how the sausage gets made as long as it's delicious. So features and benefits are how we talk about what we do. But if I just said, I understand your need and I'm going to make it go away, I don't care how you make it go away, just make it go away. Or help me achieve that amazing goal. I don't necessarily care how we get there as long as we actually do get there. Sell on outcomes. The value is I'm trading one of 3 things here: time, cost, or quality. I'm giving up 1 to get 2. So the value to me has to be I'm either getting more time back, I'm getting more money back, or I'm getting better quality than I could do on my own. So I'm going to give up money. I'm going to pay something to get something, that's faster or more efficient, that's good. Or I'm willing to give up time to do something inexpensively that's going to be great. Or I'm willing to pay a bunch to get something quickly, even though it's not very good. I did that wrong. No, I can do something fast and cheap, but it's not going to be very good. I can do something good and cheap, but it's going to take time. Or I can do something quick and good, but it's going to be really expensive. It's called the triple constraints. It comes from project management, but it also applies here when it comes to sales. I'm giving up 1 to get 2 others. And that's the value. And if you understand what they really need, which thing they're willing to give up should be easy for you to identify and position your offer accordingly. All right, I'm going to pause there because I want to get too much into proposal language. But Brian, is this making sense? You do project management. Does the triple constraints ring for you?
Yeah, it's making sense to me.
All right. Brian, what am I offering? What am I offering through this sales process?
You're offering you to solve a pain point that the customer has.
And if I can solve the pain point that the customer has, what should I be expecting in return?
A satisfied customer.
Absolutely. And because they are a satisfied customer, how should I be rewarded?
Obviously, you'll be paid, but then they could also give you some of their contacts, which could turn into leads and then flow right through the sales funnel again.
Very nice. I agree. Which means back to our classification, you're going to like level 201 here, which I love. There are, for lack of a better term, let's call them double A's or triple A's, people who are a target buyer, but you know that you do well for them and you're going to get access to something else. You might get access to a proof point. Look, we can operate at this scale. I'll go back to my very first big client as a solopreneur consultant. And I absolutely gave them a discount because I was absolutely willing to, for me, give up some of my revenue to add the quality of that client logo to my list. If you're in the Milwaukee area, It's one of the big ones. And for somebody who is starting out, I said absolutely to myself, I want to be able to say, absolutely, I did work for that company. They were one of my first clients as a solo consultant, and I did this amazing thing for them. And I was willing to lower my fee, so to speak, but I knew I needed to be charging in order to gain that value for me, which is all about determining the value. So the value has to be there on both sides. The value has to be there on both sides. If you are a salesperson and you are giving it away, so to speak, and you are not getting adequately compensated, you need to reevaluate either some part of this process to identify why, when I'm closing deals, am I actually not getting profit? We're not even at profit yet. This is just sales process. But if the opportunities that you're closing are not profitable for you, then somewhere in here is an opportunity for you to improve as well. So, absolutely, Brian, we want to get people back that are referral opportunities that can give us new leads, do a great job, and send it back around. This is, by the way, why achieving revenue is your number one priority as a business owner and a salesperson. You have to be making money to have a business. Because you have money, you have revenue, you have finances, you have the ability to now serve the client with your product or service. If I don't have revenue, I can't produce the thing that they are actually paying me to produce. All right, determination, sales, revenue. Basically, the way I want to think about this is, when do I get to count it? I only get to count it when it becomes revenue, when it converts. And I have made this mistake, and so I'm sharing it with you today. You closing the contract, you getting the signed contract back, is the finish of the sales process, but it is absolutely the start of the service process. And I absolutely got, well, I know I've lost at least one contract or one revenue, because I got the signed contract and I almost forgot to then start delivering the service because I was so excited to close this person I've been trying so hard to close. I was almost like not busy celebrating, but I was celebrating, and then I kind of went on to the next sales opportunity because it'd been such a long road to get to that signed piece of paper. I was riding the high of a good sale. Then went out and started selling more, which is good. But I forgot to get them into our service process, and the next person who needed to pick up that client didn't even know that they had to do the next thing. And I almost lost. Well, I did lose one, and I almost lost another because of that. There's a great book. Oh gosh, Brian, we might have to put it in the show notes. It's called Never. I got it. It's called You please do anyway. It's called Never Lose a Customer Again, and it talks about this being a very small part of your actual sales process and your close process. All of this becomes like 3 out of a list of 9 or 10 items because it's all about what happens after this, after the negotiation, and after the client determines yes, we are go, that my sales process, my delivery process really begins. It puts such an awesome. I'm not going to remember the author's name, but Brian will add it to the notes. Such an awesome way to reframe what you do and how you do it around achieving loyalty from the sale, from the signature, if you will. And you all know this because you've been, well, if you don't know it, you're going to learn it right now. The cost of customer acquisition, all of this stuff, is absolutely greater than the cost of customer retention on a per customer basis or per dollar basis. If you did all this work here, you needed to do it to get new clients to grow your business. Don't forget to retain them and keep them around and make sure that they're getting a great ongoing service. You got to have to resell them over and over and over. A good friend of mine, gosh, this is years ago, said this awesome line. I think it absolutely applies here. We were talking about relationships, we were talking about being married, and he said, my job every day is to remind my wife. I wouldn't need to say remind. My job every day is to make sure that my wife would choose me again. I'm like, I love that. I thought that was such a great way to look at it. He was, relationship speaking, we were being kind of metaphorical that day. So he wasn't looking at the marriage as a sales process, but he was saying, my job is to make sure that she knows that she made the right choice and to make sure that if tomorrow she had to choose again, she would choose me. He was all about maintaining the loyalty by being a great partner and provider. And I just love the way of looking at that. Sales works the same way. That customer, if your competitor comes calling, that should be a don't even pick up the phone on the part of your customer. They should be, I'm actually great. Thank you. I don't, there's nothing about my current provider that is left out. There's nothing that I am wanting for because you already did all the hard work to get them. Now keep them. All right. I'm off my proverbial box there. So Brian, what do you think? What do you think about when do you count? Have you, this is the what? Don't count the chickens before they're hatched. Bird in the, no, it's not a bird in the hand is worth two, and that one doesn't apply. What is it? I think it's just don't cut. Is there any others that don't put the cart before the horse? I don't know if that one applies, but this is definitely a count the chickens. Let's go and count the chickens. What do you think? How else do you think? Have you ever seen that show up? People who count the wind too early.
Not really, but I understand,
All right.
I guess, the meaning of it.
So I'm going to go sports metaphor for a second. You could look this one up. There are great bad football plays where the guy gets the breakaway and he's running for the touchdown and he's not even at the goal line yet. He kind of does one of these celebrations, right? Like looking at the crowd to get the thing. And right then is when the defender comes up behind him and knocks the ball back out of his hand. Or I've seen the ball get dropped like on the 1 yard line because he was too busy celebrating to realize he hadn't actually gotten over the goal line yet. Don't be that guy. All right. So don't count your chickens before they hatch. Don't celebrate until you get over the goal line. I did play football in high school, and I learned you run through the back line of the end zone. That's when we count it. To say you cannot stop until you are sure that you are over the line. I would say sales goes the same way. So back to the sales process for one more second. I told you to measure, and I told you about data. I'm going to get it in the close-up for this one. Okay. You know I don't love math. You know I do love data. If you're not measuring these things, you don't know what's working. If you're not measuring these things, you don't know what's not working. If something is working, keep doing it. Something is not working, stop doing that. Try something else. But if you're not measuring, you don't know which things to do, keep doing, and which things to stop doing. And I have seen far too many owners and leaders who stop doing things that are working and keep doing things that are not. Don't be that guy either. Here's our request, and Brian's going to help me out with this one. Here's our request. Brad has done sales process. I've done a sales process. We would love to have somebody come on with us. We'd love to make you a guest and have you come on and have us help you define, refine, and improve your sales process. My shorthand for it is we call it flip the funnel. And we figure out where things are falling out and how do we plug any holes and where are the efficiencies and how do we double down on them. So please reach out to us at sketchyideas@ccmediagroup.co. Brian will pick up your request, your interest, your excitement, I hope, opportunity there. And we'd love to have you on the show. And we'd love you to bring your real numbers. This is a be bold, be vulnerable kind of opportunity. And I guarantee the result of it for you is going to be an increase in your revenue. All right, Brian, I'm going to come back to you one more on producer, and here's what it is. We've been dropping movie quotes. Today it was a TV quote. I'll give you a hint. It wasn't a movie, but it was a TV quote. We've been dropping quotes and references through all of these shows. Let's see. Brian, do we have anybody picking up on what we're laying down, so to speak?
I believe someone guessed it last week.
Good. So somebody picked up on it. Good. Last week, Brad used the classic line from Glenn Ross, which is always be closing. ABC, you'll hear it. Anybody who knows sales and is a fan of good old G movies would know. Always be closing as a Glenn Ross line. Thank you. 2 weeks before that, I tried to work in a Ferris Bueller quote. It might have been a little bit forced. I am okay with that because it's one of my favorites of all time. And today, I'll give you a hint. It was a TV quote. Anybody grabs it and drops it in the comments, we're going to send you some lumpy mail. You want to know what lumpy mail is? Figure out what TV show I quoted. All right, Brian, I think we're at the time. You want to take us to a close?
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay, so everyone just learned about the sales process from Michael, and now we want to hear what questions you have. So make sure to send those to sketchyideas@ccmediagroup.co, and make sure to come back next week when we debate our next topic, probably with Brad. And remember, just because it's a sketchy idea doesn't mean it's not worth exploring. Thank you.
See you next time, folks. Nice job, Brian.